I'm sitting here staring at my phone, wondering how my life spiraled into this chaotic mess. I guess I should start at the beginning. My name is Jake, and I've been married to my wife, Lily, for the past 6 years. At first, it was perfect. She was vibrant, funny, and we shared everything. We had dreams of traveling the world together and starting a family. But lately, things have felt off. It's like we're living in the same house, but in two different worlds. It started with her late nights at work. Lily, who used to come home and cook dinner with me, suddenly began working late hours. At first, I supported her, thinking she was climbing the corporate ladder. But as weeks stretched into months, I couldn't shake this nagging feeling in my gut. She would come home smelling like perfume I didn't recognize, and her stories about overtime shifts felt more rehearsed. I noticed the little things: her phone buzzing at odd hours, her screen lighting up with texts that she would quickly swipe away. I tried to brush it off as paranoia, but my instincts kicked in. I'm not one of those guys who goes snooping, but when your partner starts pulling away, you start looking for answers. Then the text messages started. I'd catch glimpses of her phone, and the code words took me aback. Handler, mission, and meet. What could that even mean? I confronted her about it once, and she rolled her eyes, telling me it was just work stuff. I wanted to believe her, but deep down, I felt a storm brewing. The breaking point came when I got home early from work one day. I walked into our bedroom and saw her phone on the nightstand, buzzing with a new message. For some reason, I picked it up. I know I shouldn't have, but curiosity got the best of me. The last message was from a contact named Handler, and it was a simple, ready for tonight. My stomach dropped. I didn't even have to open the message. My heart was racing, and I could feel the weight of betrayal settling in my chest. I stood frozen for a moment, replaying all the times I'd brushed off my suspicions. I wasn't ready for the implications of what I had just uncovered. The worst part, I later found out the handler was my brother, Mark. The thought of my wife cheating with my brother was unbearable. My mind was in chaos, and I felt a mix of rage and sadness bubbling inside. I had to confront her. It was time to lay everything bare. When she came home that evening, I felt like a volcano ready to erupt. I confronted her about the phone and the messages. The look on her face was a blend of surprise and defiance. "What the hell are you talking about, Jake? It's just work. Why can't you trust me?" She spat back with a tone that felt more defensive than apologetic. I felt the anger boil over. "Work? Is that what you call it when you're sneaking around with my brother?" Her reaction was immediate. She laughed, a bitter, mocking laugh that made my blood run cold. "You really think I'd sleep with Mark? You're ridiculous." But every denial cut deeper, and I could see her scrambling for excuses. She claimed I was being paranoid and that I needed to stop jumping to conclusions. Her words were empty, and I felt the anger drain from me, replaced by a cold realization that this was the woman I married, the one who vowed to love me until the end of time. I took a deep breath, trying to process everything. I didn't know what to believe anymore. It was all too much. After that explosive confrontation, I was left reeling. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or just walk away. I felt like I was in a bad dream that I couldn't wake up from. As Lily paced around the living room, her words washed over me like a tide, but they didn't reach me, only echoed in my mind. I needed to gather my thoughts, so I decided to take a walk. The cool night air felt refreshingly real against my skin as I stepped outside. I could hear the distant sounds of laughter from neighbors, and it seemed surreal. How could the world continue to spin normally when my life was crumbling? I wandered aimlessly, trying to piece together everything I had learned, imagining the scenarios that led to this betrayal. Eventually, I found myself at a local bar. It was a familiar haunt from our early days, a place where we used to share drinks and laughter. Instead, I sat there nursing a whiskey, contemplating the darkness swirling inside me. My phone buzzed on the table, pulling me back from my thoughts. It was a text from Mark. "Hey bro, you good?" I stared at it for a long moment, unsure of how to respond. I didn't want to confront him just yet. I needed more concrete proof before I approached him. Instead, I texted back, "Yeah, just dealing with some stuff. You?" It was vague, but it bought me time. I could feel the storm within me brewing, and my instincts told me something deeper was at play. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment I'd shared with Lily. The confusion weighed heavily on me, and I was desperate to find clarity. I decided to go through her things to investigate, I suppose. I knew it was a breach of trust, but at this point, I felt justified. I crept into our bedroom while she was out the next afternoon. I started with her closet, rifling through her shoes and clothes with the hope of finding anything unusual. Nothing caught my eye. Then I moved to the bedside table, opening drawers filled with old receipts and forgotten trinkets. I was about to give up when I noticed something wedged at the back of the final drawer. Pulling it out, I found a small, black burner phone. My heart raced as I powered it on, praying it would reveal the truth. The screen lit up and I quickly went to the contacts. My breath caught in my throat when I saw the first name, Handler. I felt my hands shake. This was it, the evidence I needed. I scrolled through the messages, and the more I read, the more the betrayal sunk in. The texts were filled with innuendos and plans for secret meetings. They were discussing times and places, and it was clear that my worst fears were confirmed. I couldn't believe my brother would do this to me. Just as I was processing it all, I heard the front door open. Panic set in. I couldn't let her find me with the phone. I shoved it back into the drawer and pretended to be engrossed in a book when she walked in. "Hey babe, you're home early," she said with a chirp, her tone too cheerful for my liking. I played it cool even though my heart was racing. "Yeah, just thought I'd catch up on some reading," I replied, gesturing vaguely to the book in my hand. She looked at me curiously but didn't press. Instead, she flopped onto the couch, scrolling through her phone. As we sat in silence, I felt the weight of the burner phone pressing down on me, a tangible reminder of the lies and deceit. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time I needed to be smarter, planned. I wanted to drag her through the truth, piece by piece, and watch her squirm under the weight of her lies. As the evening wore on, I began to formulate a plan in my mind. I wouldn't just confront her with what I found. I would gather more evidence. I wanted to make sure she could never deny this again. And once I had everything, I'd figure out what to do next. I needed to be ready for the fallout. With each passing minute, I felt a sense of resolve building. My heart was still heavy, but I could feel the anger turning into determination. I was going to get to the bottom of this, and once I did, I would make her face the reality of her choices. Trust was gone, but I wasn't ready to back down. I would not let her get away with this betrayal. The game was on. The days that followed were a blur of tension and deceit. I found myself trapped in a game of cat and mouse with Lily, and I knew I had to tread carefully. My heart felt like a lead weight, but I was determined to gather evidence, solid proof that I could throw in her face when the time was right. I started following her. It felt surreal, sneaking around like a private investigator, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to know more. I wanted to see for myself what she was doing during those late nights. So, I took an extended lunch break from work one day and parked my car a few blocks from her office. I waited, feeling the weight of anticipation in my chest. When she finally emerged, my heart began to race. I followed her at a distance, keeping my cool as I watched her walk towards a small cafe that I knew wasn't part of her usual routine. I parked nearby and waited, my stomach churning as I watched her through the window. After a few minutes, I noticed a man walk in. He was tall, with dark hair and a confident stride. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I felt a surge of anger just knowing that this was likely the guy Lily had been texting. They exchanged warm smiles, and I felt my blood boil. They sat at a small table, whispering. I strained to hear their conversation, but it was a jumble of laughter and hushed voices. I watched as they leaned in closer, conspiratorial. There was something intimate in their body language, something I had never seen between Lily and me in a long time. She laughed at something he said, her eyes sparkling in a way that made my stomach twist. I felt a rush of betrayal that almost made me ill. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know what they were talking about. Thankfully, I remembered the old trick of taking a photo with my phone through the window. I snapped a few shots, desperate to catch them. In a moment of intimacy, I didn't care if it was wrong, I needed proof. After what felt like an eternity, they stood up and I saw her lean in to give him a warm hug. It was the kind of hug you give someone you care deeply about, not just a casual friend. I felt my heart shatter in that moment, and I wanted nothing more than to confront her right then and there, but I had to be smart. I couldn't blow my cover. I followed them covertly as they left the cafe. They wandered around the nearby park, and I watched from a distance as they chatted and laughed, oblivious to my presence. Eventually, they parted ways and Lily headed back to her office. I couldn't believe what I had seen. I felt a cocktail of emotions, anger, sadness, betrayal, all swirling within me. When I got home that evening, I decided to confront her again, but this time it would be different. I had my evidence. I had the pictures. I felt a sense of power building within me, and I was ready to unleash it. But when Lily walked through the door, she seemed different. She greeted me with a smile, her hair tousled and her cheeks flushed. "Hey babe, how was your day?" she asked, her voice cheerful. I wanted to scream, to throw her lies back in her face, but I swallowed hard and forced a smile in return. "It was fine," I replied, my voice steady even though my heart pounded in my chest. "Yours?" She launched into a story about a meeting gone well, talking animatedly about her coworkers. I forced myself to listen, but all I could think about were the pictures. The betrayal, her laughter with that man, it all felt like a bitter poison coursing through my veins. I decided to play along for the moment. I needed to bide my time, to act like everything was normal. But I was just waiting for the perfect moment to drop the bombshell. The next day, I made a plan. I decided to invite Mark over for a casual drink. I wanted to see him face to face, gauge his reaction, and maybe even trap him into confessing something. I texted him, and he agreed to come by in the evening. As I prepared for his arrival, I felt the tension building in my chest. I was anxious but also somewhat excited. I had the burner phone hidden away, the pictures ready to reveal, and a confrontation to orchestrate. When Mark arrived, he was his usual laid-back self, cracking jokes and sipping on beers. But I could see the subtle changes in his demeanor. He was a bit more guarded than usual, and that set off alarms in my mind. We talked about mundane things, sports and work, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to pivot the conversation. Finally, after a couple of beers, I decided to bring it up. "So, Mark, how's everything with you and Lily? You guys seem pretty close lately," I said casually, watching his face for a reaction. His smile faltered for a split second, and I could see the tension in his jaw. "Yeah, she's great. We work well together," he replied, but there was a hint of nervousness in his voice. I pushed a little further. "You guys hang out a lot, huh? I mean, how well do you really know her?" The question hung in the air, and I could see him squirm. "Come on, Jake. She's a great person, you know that. We're just friends," he insisted, but I could feel the cracks forming. At that moment, I decided to drop my bomb. "Well, I found her burner phone, and it had your number saved as handler. Care to explain that?" I watched as his face drained of color, and I could see the panic rising in his eyes. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. I felt a rush of satisfaction. Finally, the truth was coming to light. I was ready for this confrontation, and I wasn't going to let either of them escape the reality of their choices. I pushed on, driven by fury and betrayal. "What kind of relationship do you have with my wife, Mark? Because it sure as hell looks like more than just friends to me." The tension in the room thickened, and I could tell I was about to get answers. Mark's face twisted into a mixture of shock and guilt, and I could see his mind racing as he struggled to come up with a plausible excuse. The silence hung between us like a thick fog, and my heart pounded in. My chest, each beat echoing the betrayal that was now laid bare before me. "Jake, it's not what you think," he finally stammered, running a hand through his hair. "We work together and we've just been what, Mark?" I interrupted, my voice rising in anger. "You think I'm stupid? I've seen the way she looks at you. You think I haven't noticed? You're my brother. How could you betray me like this?" His eyes darted around the room, looking for a way out, but there was nowhere to hide. The weight of the truth pressed down on both of us, and I could see the realization of what he had done dawning on him. "Look, I swear it just happened. We didn't plan for this. Lily and I," he hesitated, clearly weighing his words. "It was just a stupid fling. She said things weren't great between you two, and I didn't mean for it to go this far." A surge of anger bubbled within me. "A stupid fling? You think that makes this okay? You're sleeping with my wife and you call it stupid?" I paced the room, the fire of betrayal fueling my movements. You've ruined everything, man. You've ruined my life. I'm sorry, he mumbled, his voice barely above a whisper. I never wanted to hurt you. I swear I thought it was just what? Just a little fun behind my back. I snapped. Do you understand what you've done? As I stood there, the weight of the betrayal pressed heavily on my chest. My brother had crossed a line I never thought he would. I had trusted him, and now that trust was shattered. I felt the anger morphing into sadness, and I couldn't help but wonder how this could have happened. I decided to shift gears. Where is she now? I asked, trying to maintain control of the situation, my voice calmer but still laced with anger. I don't know, she said she had a meeting tonight. He replied defensively, his eyes darting to the ground as if he couldn't face me directly. I felt a surge of determination. I need proof, Mark. I need something that shows how deep this goes. I need to see it for myself. I can't just betray her like that, he said, his voice shaky. It's wrong. What's wrong is what you've already done. You need to own up to this. I don't want to just hear your excuses. I want to see the reality. He looked conflicted, and for a moment I thought he might crack. I'll talk to her. I'll tell her how you found out, and maybe we can fix this, he finally said. Fix it? I scoffed. This isn't something you just fix. You destroyed the trust in our family. It's not just between me and Lily, it's between you and me too. Mark sighed, defeated. Okay, I'll talk to her, but please don't go crazy on her. Just give us some time to sort this out. I wanted to scream, to shout that there was nothing to sort out, but I felt a flicker of understanding. Maybe if I played this right, I could get more information. Fine, I said, my voice cold. But if you're going to talk to her, I want to be there. I want to hear everything. Okay, he said, looking somewhat relieved. I'll set it up. Just don't do anything rash, all right? With that, Mark left, and I was left standing in the quiet of my living room, my emotions a chaotic storm. I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me. It seemed surreal that my life had taken this turn, with my own brother at the center of it. I sank onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. As the evening wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. I had lost more than just my wife's trust. I had lost my brother's loyalty. I needed to confront Lily and hear her version of the story, but I also realized that this confrontation was going to be the most painful part of all. That night, I barely slept. My mind raced with thoughts of impending confrontation. I needed to be prepared, to have my emotions in check. I wanted to hear her excuses, to see if she would even attempt to defend herself. I wondered what she would say when I presented her with all the evidence I had collected. The next day, I received a text from Mark confirming that he had spoken to Lily, and they would meet at our usual cafe later that afternoon. I felt knots forming in my stomach at the thought of what was to come. I decided I'd show up, not just as the betrayed husband, but as a man who was determined to reclaim his life. When the time came, I arrived at the cafe early, taking a seat in the corner where I could see everything unfold. My heart raced as I anticipated their arrival, knowing that this would be the moment that changed everything. I had to be strong. I had to be ready. This was my chance to finally confront Lily about her lies, her betrayal, and everything that had led us to this moment. As I waited, I steeled myself for the reality of what would happen next. The truth was finally about to surface, and I was prepared to face it head-on. Watching the door of the cafe, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. I needed to gather my thoughts and brace myself for what was about to happen. The air was thick with tension, and every few minutes I glanced at my phone, as if to reassure myself that I was indeed ready for the confrontation that loomed ahead. Finally, I spotted them entering through the door. They looked casual, engaged in light conversation, but I could see the tension beneath the surface. Mark caught my eye first and gave me a quick nod, while Lily was blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to hit her. She looked beautiful as always, but in that moment, her beauty felt like a cruel reminder of the trust that had been shattered. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. This was it. I wasn't just confronting my wife about a fling. I was confronting the very foundation of our marriage. As they made their way to a table, I stood up and approached them, my voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of anger. Mind if I join you? I asked, my tone calm yet firm. Lily's eyes widened in surprise, clearly not expecting to see me there. Jake, what are you doing here? she exclaimed, her tone a mix of confusion and feigned innocence. "I'm here to have a conversation," I stated flatly, taking a seat across from them. I could see Mark's face tighten, but I didn't care. I was ready to lay it all out. "What do you mean?" Lily asked, trying to project an air of nonchalance that only made my blood boil. "I thought you were busy." "Busy? No, I was just gathering some information," I said, narrowing my gaze at her. "Let's cut the crap, shall we? I saw you two together." Lily's face fell. "What do you mean?" she stammered, attempting to feign ignorance. I pulled out my phone and slid it across the table, letting the photos speak for themselves. The color drained from her face as she scrolled through the images, her breathing becoming rapid. "You were at the cafe with my brother, laughing and hugging. What the hell is going on, Lily?" She looked at Mark, her expression pleading, but I could see the panic setting in her eyes. "Jake, it's not what it looks like," she exclaimed, desperation creeping into her voice. "Not what it looks like," I scoffed. "How many times have I heard that excuse already? You're not just having a work friendship with Mark. This is betrayal, and you know it." Mark shifted uncomfortably in his chair, clearly caught in the crossfire. "Lily, maybe we should just be honest," he said quietly, but I could see the guilt written all over his face. "Honest?" I laughed bitterly. "You think honesty is what led us here? You both have been lying through your teeth while throwing away years of trust." Lily opened her mouth to respond, but I wasn't done. "You think I didn't notice the late nights, the excuses? I thought it was just work stress, but no. It was you and my brother sneaking around behind my back. How could you do this?" My voice rose, anger spilling over with every word. Tears filled Lily's eyes, and for a moment I felt a twinge of sympathy, but it quickly faded as she opened her mouth to speak. "Jake, I never meant for this to happen. Things have been so strained between us for a while now, and I didn't know how to talk to you about it. By cheating on me." I spat, incredulous. "That's your answer? You couldn't come to me and talk about how unhappy you were, so you decided to fuck my brother instead?" Mark looked down at his drink, shame written all over his face. "Dude, I'm so sorry. I never wanted it to go this far. I thought it could just be something innocent," he said, but his words only fueled my anger. "Innocent? You think there's anything innocent about what you've done? You both have betrayed me in the worst way possible." Lily reached across the table, her hand trembling. "Please, Jake. I know I messed up, but I want to fix this. I love you and I don't want to lose what we have," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "I don't even know what love means to you anymore," I shot back, pulling away. "You've made your choices and now you have to face the consequences." The cafe felt suffocating and I could see other patrons glancing over, curious about the unfolding drama. I didn't care. I was done playing nice. "I want you both to understand how deeply you've hurt me. This isn't something I can just brush aside. You've both crossed lines that can't be uncrossed." Mark looked at me, visibly shaken. "I'll talk to her, man. We can figure this out." "No, Mark," I said firmly. "This isn't just about you two fixing things. You've betrayed me and you need to face the reality of what you've done. I don't think I can ever trust you again." Lily's expression shifted from desperation to defiance. "So what are you going to do, Jake? Walk away? You're just going to throw everything away because of a mistake?" The word mistake hung in the air like a lead balloon, and I couldn't help but feel the weight of her accusation. "This isn't a mistake, it's a choice," I replied coldly. "You chose to betray me and now you'll have to live with the consequences." The tension in the cafe was almost unbearable. I could see the worry in her eyes, and for the first time I felt a flicker of uncertainty. Did I really want to throw away everything we had built? But then I thought of the trust that was shattered, and suddenly the answer was clear. "I need time to think," I said finally, standing up from the table. "I don't know what the future holds for us, but right now, I can't be around either of you. I'm done playing games." With that, I turned and walked out of the cafe, each step feeling heavier than the last. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I knew I couldn't stay in a situation filled with betrayal and lies. The world outside felt cold and unwelcoming, but it was a world where I could at least begin to reclaim my own life. I took a deep breath, ready to face the next chapter, whatever that may be. The days that followed my confrontation felt surreal, as if I was moving through a fog. I had walked away from the cafe with a heavy heart but also a strange sense of liberation. For the first time in a long while, I was focused on me, my feelings, my needs, my future. I didn't know what that future looked like, but I was determined to find out. Lily tried to reach out constantly. She sent texts filled with apologies, explanations, and pleas for another chance. I didn't respond. Every time my phone chimed with a message from her, my heart raced, but I refused to let her manipulation pull me back in. I knew deep down that this wasn't just about her. It was about the trust that had been irreparably broken. Mark, on the other hand, had gone silent. I wasn't surprised. He had crossed a line that I never thought he would, and I needed space from him as well. The betrayal felt like a knife in my back, and every time I thought of the two of them together, a fresh wave of hurt washed over me. I spent a lot of time reflecting during those weeks. I confided in a close friend who provided a listening ear and some much-needed perspective. I realized that while the situation was painful, it also presented an opportunity for growth. I had a chance to reevaluate my life and what I wanted moving forward. One evening, after particularly long days of work and solitude, I found myself sitting on my couch, contemplating everything I had been through. I thought about the dreams Lily and I had once shared, the plans for a future together. In that moment, I grappled with the choices I had to make. Could I ever envision a life with her again after this betrayal? I concluded that reconciliation would be a long and arduous journey, one that would require trust to be rebuilt from the ground up, and honestly, I wasn't sure if I wanted to undertake that journey with her. I deserved a partner who would honor our vows, who wouldn't betray me with family. Eventually, I decided to take a trip. I needed to clear my head and focus on something other than the pain that had enveloped my life. I booked a last-minute ticket to the mountains, a place where I could breathe and think without the constant reminders of my shattered marriage. The trip was cathartic. I spent hours hiking, surrounded by nature, feeling the weight on my shoulders begin to lift. The solitude allowed me to reflect on who I was outside of my marriage. I remembered the passions I had set aside in favor of building a life with Lily. I started to think about what I wanted for my future, free from the shadows of betrayal. When I returned home, I felt a sense of clarity. I knew I couldn't go back to the way things were, and I didn't want to. I finally decided to reach out to Lily, but not to reconcile. Instead, I wanted to end things for good. I needed closure for myself, and I wanted her to understand that the path we had walked together had come to an end. I set up a meeting at a neutral location, a quiet coffee shop where we could talk without the weight of our home hanging over us. When Lily walked in, she looked tired and worn, an expression of regret etched across her face. It was evident she had been through her own turmoil since our confrontation, but I felt no sympathy. "Jake," she said softly, hesitating as she took a seat. "I've been thinking about everything and I want to make it right." I held up my hand, cutting her off. "No, Lily, you don't get to come here and make empty promises. What you did was unforgivable. This isn't something we can just make right." Her eyes filled with tears. "I know that. I made a mistake and I hate myself for it, but I love you and I want to fix this." "Love isn't enough," I replied, my voice steady. "You made your choices and now I have to make mine. I don't think I can ever trust you again. I don't want to live in a shadow of betrayal." The truth hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I could see the pain in her eyes and part of me felt guilty for causing it, but I reminded myself that I had to prioritize my own well-being. "I think it's best if we go our separate ways," I continued. "I need to find my own path again, and I don't think you can be part of it anymore." Lily nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I understand. I wish things could have been different." "Me too," I said softly, but I didn't feel the weight of sadness I had expected. Instead, I felt a sense of relief. It was the right decision for me, and I was finally taking control of my own life. We parted ways that day, and as I walked away from that coffee shop, I felt a sense of closure. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, it felt like it could be filled with promise. I learned some valuable lessons through this entire ordeal. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it often can't be repaired. It's important to communicate openly within a relationship and to be honest about feelings, no matter how painful that may be. In the end, I chose to focus on myself, my passions, my dreams, and my future. I wouldn't let the betrayal define me. Instead, I would use it as a stepping stone toward a better version of myself. And maybe someday I would find someone who could love me without the shadows of the past creeping in.